All right, you guys are all ready. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Thursday, June 18th, 2020 at 7:03 p.m. Do the roll call real quick, and then I gotta throw something at you guys. So, David Baselon, you here?
Yes, sure.
Chris DeRozier? Nothing. Bruce Edgerton?
Yes.
Jonathan Kastner? I know he's here. Alan Parody?
Yes, here.
Christy Stroud?
I'm here.
Ben Whalen?
Here.
And you're gonna seek Christy for Chris since he did not show up. Real quick, I did some rearranging after I sent out the agenda, so I'm looking for a motion to adopt the new agenda that's on your screen.
President Trump expressed his
If you guys
Tony, can whoever has a TV on, can they mute it? It's really hard to hear for me, at least.
decisions coming out of the Supreme Court are shocking.
I'm gonna go through and mute a couple people.
Thank you.
That's all.
I'll make that motion, but before we move on, could you just clarify what the difference is? Because I'm looking at one agenda here, not side by side. Just
Okay.
clarify me the change.
Yep, so I originally had approval of the others. I had the special meeting on there from May, which was incorrect. We actually did approve those. I added the May 21st regular meeting to this. And we got the special meeting from June 8th minutes also, which I sent out to everybody, so I added that. There's a couple of things. I moved public business up so John could be here for that.
Yep.
Here comes Chris.
And the April 16,
Yep.
you added on this one.
Okay, so that's what it was, yeah, April 16th. And we also added the budget to number 8.
Okay. I'll make the motion to is it adopt the amended agenda?
Fantastic. Second, anybody?
Second.
Yeah, sure.
All right, I'm assuming you're all in favor.
Yep.
Yes.
Aye.
So moving on, we got the April 16th, 2020 minutes. Let's see if I can get this all in front of me. Did everybody have a chance to read them?
Yes.
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 Any corrections?
No.
No.
All
I'll
right,
make a motion to approve the minutes of April 16th. And the
fantastic.
right one? Yes.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next one, May 21st.
Tony? Hey,
Yes.
Tony?
Yep.
By doing that verbally like that, for the
Yep.
record, it doesn't say what the vote was. I mean, whether you had any that were abstaining or voting against.
Oh, you're right, let me back up. Did anybody abstain? Anybody against? All right, so I'm assuming that's unanimous.
Sounds like it.
All right, moving on to the May 21st, 2020. Any corrections? Anybody got anything to say? Nothing. All right, looking for a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from May 21st, 2020.
Fantastic. Second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Dave, thank you. Is anybody against? Anybody abstaining? All right, everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, more minutes. June 8th, special meeting, 2020. Any comments?
I was absent from that one, so I have no comments.
Okay, so you're abstaining?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
If nobody has any comments, looking for a motion.
I would move to accept the minutes from Thursday, June 8th, 2020.
Fantastic. Anybody with a second?
Second.
All right. Anybody against? I know Dave's abstaining. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. So, we have correspondence next. I don't believe there's anything. Nancy, I'm assuming you don't have anything.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Moving on to public business. Now, originally the Cranberry Bog Estates was on there. I took it off. I spoke to the attorney. He said they still haven't met all the conditions, so I just took it off. So I guess the only public business we have is discussion on food trucks.
Tony?
Yep.
What about this thing for the Sabisky Society?
Nope, that was pulled. That was approved.
Okay, just administratively or?
Yep.
Okay.
Was that wasn't on the one that I sent out, was it?
No, but you had sent it out
Okay.
earlier. And I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if we were going to discuss it tonight or what. Or
No, that was administratively approved.
okay. Yeah.
But anyway, I figured to throw the food trucks out here since John's here, he could go over some of that stuff because I know I think he worked on the ones in Clinton.
Okay.
Plus he can throw out some information. He's willing to work on that stuff. If you guys have any ideas, I know Dave, do you know about the ones in Madison?
Yeah, I know Guilford also has food trucks on their green. I didn't have the chance to look at their ordinance to see what their regs are, but I imagine they have some. If we wanted to look at those, just to see what they've got.
Yeah, and then I don't know. This is probably Angus would have to jump in on this too. I don't know how the fee works. I know every town has a fee. It's about $200 a year. But I don't know if planning and zoning charges that, or if it's through somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the Madison one. I don't see that.
Yeah, there's. I have that written here. Well,
Tony,
Clinton
can you just summarize this? I'm sorry, I'm out of the loop on what we're talking about.
food trucks. We don't have them in Madison or in Deep River. We don't have anything in our zoning regulations for it. And I know right during the COVID lockdown thing that we're doing, you can have a food truck out in front of your business, but there are other people who'd like to do food trucks. Like, let's say a church on Church Street, I think would be a great spot to have food trucks. It's a little one-way street. There's not a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
So just something to talk about, think about. Like I said, John's familiar with the ones in Clinton.
I love food trucks. I'm all in.
Hey,
So would it make sense for John, for you or Mike to sort of put some templates together for us to sort of react to?
Well, so yeah, and so for the record and for the folks I haven't met yet, or folks who haven't been calling my cell phone, I'm John Guskowski with CME Associates CHA, along with my colleague Mike D'Amato, who is on a different conference call right now, are serving as the town's interim CEOs. And had made a pitch. I think I'd met some of you probably about this time last year, offering to provide planning consulting and zoning consulting services. So we're going to, in the time we have available to us, in addition to zoning stuff, zoning enforcement stuff and permits, try to move the town forward on some of its priority initiatives, maybe some zoning tweaks, maybe some planning projects or grants or what have you. Again, time dependent. So before we sort of move into the question of how you want to regulate food trucks, I want to start sort of from first principle is what's the commission's impression of them? Obviously, it sounded like Christy likes food trucks, so that's good. There certainly can be a benefit to the town and can be sort of a value added. There is some concern that they would compete with brick and mortar restaurants that clearly have an investment in town, built something, or put a large investment in a food operation, and pay taxes and provide employment. Whereas food trucks that come from anywhere don't really pay taxes and can disappear. On the other hand, it could create more of a restaurant row kind of, bringing lots of people and in a way that benefits the restaurants as well. So there's upsides and downsides. There are places, maybe they should be restricted to certain areas in town. Maybe they shouldn't be parked right in front of another restaurant. And so, getting what you know, starting from first principles, what do you want to do? Do we want to encourage them? Do we want to, you know, restrict them in some way? And then we can go from there. Clinton permits them basically as with vendor permits that actually run through the police department, who do background checks, and the planning and zoning commission, or the planning and zoning office, which signs off on them administratively, just sort of requires, you know, details, because essentially they're vehicles, they're not land uses per se, and just sort of, you know, does an annual permit for them. But that I'd be happy to share the vendor regs with you guys.
Didn't we have one down at the landing?
Yeah, I think there was
The
one down there.
Summers? There was one there, and then we have Chris's over, like, off the hot dog stand, food truck. We have
Yeah,
that
but it's not
now.
a truck, though.
Yeah, I believe there was a
It's a truck?
barbecue
Well,
truck trailer
Yeah.
a while back as well. I think this is an interesting issue, and I think it's something that we should probably have at least a joint discussion with EDC about, because it does have implications on the mix of, you know, permanent businesses in town. And I think from a zoning perspective, if this becomes, you know, more than just a you know, a partial seasonal use or opportunity based, if it's becomes a little more permanent, there is the issue of infrastructure that a normal restaurant or vendor would need to provide and demonstrate the ability to do, such as, you know, toilet facilities and trash facilities, et cetera. So I think if we're going to look at this as a viable mix in town, and, you know, personally, I think that there's a lot of advantage to it, but I think there's some issues we need to look at. Is the you know, trash, toilet facilities, parking, and that type of thing. And we would have to study the appropriate locations that a you know, a food truck would, you know, could be. That's not going to compete with the zones established, you know, by the town already.
Can I jump in, Alan?
Absolutely.
I had sent Tony this portion of the Madison zoning regs. It's 3 pages, and it sort of talks about a lot of that. The vendor is required to pay a $500 parking fee annually. They are very specific about where in Madison the trucks can be. They're kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with how familiar you are with Madison. They're kind of apart from downtown, so they're not really directly competing with the downtown establishments. There are very, very specific requirements about where they can park. They have to be responsible for trash cleanup. They, you know, can't have any outdoor seating or anything like that. It's worth taking a look at. I don't know if Tony, if you want to send that around or
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it would be a good template for us to work off of, or to at least use as a starting point, I think. It answers a lot of your questions, Alan, I think, for Madison anyway, but certainly it would work as a model for us, I think. The big question is just where in town we would want them to be. And that's the big discussion point, I think. So.
All right. So anybody else have thoughts on that? I mean, I definitely like John to take a look, but I think there is going to be discussion about, you know, need to be discussion about where it goes. Like I said, Church Street was my gut, but I'm sure there's going to be other places. You know, like the Landing's had it before. Why not that?
Right.
Well, or if we wanted away from the restaurants, Platwood Park isn't by any of the restaurants.
Right.
Yeah.
And
There was
close
a-
to Ben and I.
That's been done before as well.
Right,
I think that any place that there's a potential recreational venue in Deep River, it could be an opportunity. There's
Right.
other
Yeah.
spots, such
I
as
think-
the parking lot across from the fire station, which is
Yeah.
kind of a gateway location, that would also be very viable because of
So-
traffic
I
How
think if
availability.
Parks
If
and
I
Rec is the place that approved it for out at Platwood Park, because I was on it then, and so the Park and Rec Commission actually approved the one that was at Platwood Park a couple years ago.
Well, I think, you know, again, I work in Madison, so I know Madison. The trucks in Madison are close enough to downtown where they're somewhat separated from downtown, but they're close enough where if you're an employee of a business downtown, it's an easy thing to just walk for the most part, or possibly drive to one of the trucks if you just want to get out and have lunch somewhere else. You know, Platwood Park might not work. Again, we don't have as big a downtown as Madison. But if the idea is to get like lunchtime, you know, a lunchtime business, you want it to be closer to downtown, I would think.
Right. Yeah, and I think in terms of the, again, the zoning perspective, what we're doing is expanding, it's not exactly spot zoning, but it's expanding the place where you would be offering food services. And it certainly changes the complexion of the business community. I think it'd be very important to have economic development weigh in on this and get the perspective of local businesses to see how that impacts them. Could have great benefits. It could be detrimental to some. So before we embark on changing regulations to allow it, I think since it's not clear necessarily in our plan of conservation and development that, you know, this is something that the town has identified that we want to expand this use in town, that we should get some feedback.
Well, I think the initial thought was that we just ought to have something in place in case somebody does approach the town and want this. Not necessarily that we're trying to encourage it or discourage it, but that we just have regs in place to deal with it, assuming somebody comes to the town and wants to do this.
I agree with you 100% there too. And basically we're looking at two issues here. One is the permanent scenario of allowing food trucks, and one is the interim under COVID. I think that is a different situation. And if we begin to look at what we would want to require in terms of a food truck during these interim phases, it's an excellent opportunity to take it for a test drive. And it allows us the opportunity to address it for the long term.
I was going to mention the brewery too. I know they have a food truck now, and I'm assuming, you know, breweries and food trucks go together pretty well. So, you know, maybe they'll get another one.
I've been meaning to try that.
Because they're not allowed to sell food, right?
What's that?
They're not licensed to sell food, right? Do I remember that correctly?
The brewery is not, but that's why there's a food truck.
So it's a good complement to.
Right.
It's actually an interesting scenario as well, is that if you have an establishment like that, it's easy to couple a food truck with the infrastructure of, you know, an establishment like a brewery or other venue that might have the infrastructure for trash and for toilet facilities and parking, et cetera. So that might be a scenario that we look at as well.
Guys, this is Chris. I know I'm not seated, but something to consider. Think about part of their process of getting reviewed and passed for that. That is like in the minutes on record on. They were talking about doing this, so these things are going to come up more and more. So we definitely need to kind of figure out our game plan.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so
because I do remember we had at Chaos, when Chaos was there, that was an issue. Well, some people liked it, some people did not, but they just had a cupcake truck park on the side of the road, and that can be pretty dangerous.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's why we need
always
the
dangerous.
All right, so
Tony, are you looking for any sort of motion on this, or just to start the discussion? And
no, just to start the discussion.
Do we have? Is John able to weigh in on this a little bit further based on you know, some direction that we might take for a precedent, especially for the interim COVID phase of food trucks?
I was just looking to start the conversation. I mean, I know John's got to run in a second, so
what we could do certainly, and David, if you could email me the Madison section of the reg,
Sure.
Just to the zoning email, which is just zoning@deepriverct.us. And I'll pull the Clinton reg and we can share those out both before the next meeting, and we can kind of talk about the pluses and minuses of them, or if it's obvious, some sort of, common approach, we could draft something up.
Yeah, and Guilford might have something too. They probably do have something. If you wanted to take a look at them.
Sure.
Or I can investigate that.
Tony, there's a couple of things in the group chat. I know it's not public comment, but I don't know if you want to check them out.
Yep, I'm replying right now. My multitasking is not that great. Or my spelling, apparently. Let's see. All right, so while I'm replying to this, does anybody have anything else for John? Because I know he's got to jump for another meeting.
So if I could, Tony, just again a quick, quick update. So again, Mike and I started on Monday. We're going to be covering Monday and Wednesday mornings at Town Hall. We're available via the phone number for the zoning officer, which I don't recall the extension, maybe 226, or the zoning email address, zoning@deepriverct.us. We've been basically trying to get up to speed and clearing out some of the permits that have been sitting around, clearing a couple of temporary outdoor dining permits, per COVID, approving some home occupations. And again, basically just sort of clearing out the administrative stuff that we're able to clear out. One thing I will note for next meeting, the gentleman named Gary Arms, who had a subdivision on, I believe it's 110 River Road, a couple of years ago, a 3-lot subdivision, 2 new lots and an existing house, had a condition on that because it was a 3-lot subdivision that all the houses, the subsequent houses for the subdivision, either had to be served by an underground cistern for fire protection, or each building had to be sprinklered. And he has no problem with that for the 2 new lots, but the old house is historic. It's 90 plus years old, and he is running into a lot of problems trying to figure out how to sprinkler it cost effectively and without damaging the historic nature of the home. And so he's been asking how to deal with that. And I spoke with him today and basically recommended that he approach this commission next month, basically with an application for.
Oh, he froze up there, huh?
A modification to the terms of his subdivisions. Again, 3 lots or more require this fire protection. But for the reasons I stated, he doesn't believe that the existing house, the existing historic house, needs to be sprinklered in the same way, and so would like this commission to consider modifying that portion of his subdivision approval, which could be done in a meeting. You wouldn't have to have another public hearing, but it essentially would be an application to modify a subdivision approval. So if this commission, was amenable to that, he would submit that and present that to you in July.
I'm just going to throw out real quick. This comes up quite a bit. I know everybody's been fighting this for years, and my thought is, this has been upheld in court. Like, how many times did Kathy mention? 3, 4. So I don't think you can. I don't want to give my opinion. Just keep that in mind. There's a reason they were supposed to.
What's been upheld in court that you're allowed to make that requirement?
No, that you haven't. So the 3-lot subdivision is you were required to have fire protection, and people have been fighting this for years. These people actually came forward and didn't want to do a fire tank, and they said, we'll just do sprinklers instead. So they kind of butted heads about not doing the underground fire tank. Decided, we're just going to do the sprinklers, and sounds like now that's not working either. So I don't know what the commission's thought is, but I just wanted to throw out, just because I actually remember some of this.
Is this something that is more appropriate to go to appeals if they've already gotten a direction and they're looking for relief based on it being a historic structure?
There's really no, there's no appeal process because you'd made the decision and he's accepted it. He's outside the appeal period. He filed the Mylars. So it would essentially, he'd have to have another application or another decision if he sought to appeal it. So he's basically seeking at this point to ask you to reconsider via a new application, which of course he hasn't made yet, but yeah.
John,
Is this something that we'd want to get the fire marshal to weigh in on, or?
Yeah, I've told him to do that, that he would want the fire marshal and the building official to make a statement of support if he could, so to demonstrate that there was not a pressing public safety concern.
I guess my question, John, would be, do you have to tailor this pretty specifically to not leave a hole in this, that the next 3-lot subdivision, I mean, it'd have to be very carefully tailored, correct? That it wouldn't start opening us up to other ones to be exempt from this?
Well, it would be a case by case. He could, in theory, ask you to modify the subdivision regulations as a whole, but which would then affect future things. But he's just asking you for relief from a specific condition of his approval, and given an existing building,
It's a historic.
the new lots are sprinklered, but the existing building, he is, I think it's sort of a question of, there may be an appropriate, an appropriate tweak to the subdivision regulations at some point, where you're talking about 3 new lots or something like that. 3 undeveloped properties would need to be sprinklered, but some exemption for an existing structure. But this is all up to you. But that's.
I gotta throw in real quick. Yeah. Those new lots have not been built yet, so he could still go back and put the fire tank in.
So he could.
Right. The other thing is the I know he's friends with the fire marshal, so, and the fire marshal actually came to the meeting, and I know the whole court case thing came up again back at this meeting.
I didn't realize that. The simple solution is put in a fire tank then, if they haven't built anything.
Agreed.
And then problem resolved. You don't have to deal with anything.
Right. We've made so many, look at how many times we've made people do that. It's the guy up on Winthrop Road. He bought, the lot had been split once before. He bought it and split it again and had to put in the fire tank because he was the last 2 lots. I feel bad for the guy, but that's the regulation, and that's what holds water here. Fire tank.
I see what you did, Tony.
So that's fine. That's certainly a valid approach. I just wanted to relay his concerns to you.
Nope.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
There's no road or anything in, Tony? It's just the existing house?
Yeah, it's an existing house. He subdivided into 3 lots. Didn't want to do the fire tank, didn't want to do it. Hasn't built anything yet. And now he's saying he could do he's backtracking on what he said. So I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. So,
so the guidance to him would be he's welcome to submit an application, but the commission believes that he should probably reconsider the fire tank.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
It seems like a more reasonable approach to me than trying to backtrack on something. At least you're getting the fire protection.
Right.
If nothing's built, it's an easy way to protect that building.
Okay, I'll relay the message. And with that, I will bid you gentlemen and ladies a good evening, and feel free to reach out.
Hey, thanks, John. Have a good night.
Thanks, John.
Good luck at your next
on board.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So we got our. Go ahead. Somebody. All right. I was going to say we're still on the food truck thing. I know. We wanted to reach out to the EDC. I'm assuming that's one of the things.
Yeah, that might be.
Just for see what their thoughts are, get some input from them. If you guys can throw around in your heads maybe where you think would be a good spot for this, we'll reach out to everybody else too, I guess. I'll hit John with another email and see what he comes up with. and I will send out Dave's email to everybody too.
Okay.
So I don't think, I mean, there's nothing really, there's no motion or anything for this. I guess we're just gonna continue this conversation again later.
Yeah, just a discussion item.
Go ahead. You're gonna say something, Dave?
Just that it's a discussion item, so it's open-ended, open-ended.
Yep.
Have we had any recent inquiries to have a food truck, or is this more of a being proactive? Is there anything
There's
that we know that's pending?
there's two that received administrative zoning permits during the COVID shutdown. But just in general, I mean, I know, like you said, the guy who did the smoker, he still lives on Winter Avenue. I don't think he sold it. You know, I'm sure there's people that always ask. Like you said, the hot dog stand is there. I know the brewery's going to want them. You know, so I think and most likely my guess is that the two that were administratively approved are going to want to stay. You know, past the COVID thing. That's my gut.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that we, you know, keep moving on this.
Should we also reach out to the neighboring town, reach out to Chester and Essex to see if there's any movement on those fronts in regard to this?
Yeah, can always ask.
If we establish regulations with regard to food trucks, we should be at least coordinated or cognizant of what our neighbors are doing.
Okay. I will throw something out just for the heck of it. Anybody else got anything for this? All right, I will throw something together. Moving on to reports. We didn't have anything from the ZEO. They've only been there 2 days so far, so I didn't see anything. I flipped my page up. Give me 1 second. So there is something from the attorney. He sent me an email, said the Prisley lawsuit was postponed due to the COVID outbreak thing. And there is a new date for the court case. It is now 7/15/20. Let's see. As I said, the Cranberry Bog thing still hasn't been finished. And that's it for attorney. I haven't seen anything from engineering. Nancy, if you saw, I mean, do you have anything, any of these? I'm just going to throw those out there because Nancy may have something I haven't seen.
I'm not aware of anything, no.
Okay. On any of these?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, nothing.
Hey, Tony.
Yep. I'm
This is
listening.
Bruce. I have a question.
Shoot.
E, under Reports Regulations Committee, does that take the place of item 9 on the agenda?
This is like if anything came from the regulations committee is my guess. And we haven't done it, so it's kind of just a placeholder in there. When we get down to regulations committee, I think Alan has to mention some stuff about that.
All righty.
Chairman, I have nothing. Budget reports, we did get those from Jonathan. And I will throw them up on the screen if I can. This is July. Let me see if I can get an order. If anybody wanted to talk about them, they are here on the screen. And I think I sent them, I think they got forwarded to everybody anyway.
Yeah.
Are we expecting any further significant expenditures under this year's budget? Are we kind of looking at the, where we're going to be ending up this year? I noticed that we did, since the last report that I saw, I think some of the administrative cost was recorded. But I just wanted to see if this really does, we're at a point where we are seeing our year-end expenditure. And
I mean, my guess is, the engineer is still reviewing Cranberry Bog. There's the attorney. He's got to get prepped for court. We got the new ZEO, so there's still those couple of things. And
I guess I did ask Jonathan, to forward this, and thank you, Jonathan, for getting this, because it does illustrate a few things. And that's why I also asked to have on the inclusion and discussion of the budget, because we're in a position where we've got next year's fiscal budget does not have provision for our consulting services right now with, for ZEO. In addition, I mean, we have legal fees, but we have no line item in our budget for next year for legal either. And so again, maybe we get into this more detail with the budget discussion. But in regard to the reporting, I guess the clarification I'm asking for is, does this really reflect our year-end expenditure, or is there something significant that still might pop up, during the last couple of weeks?
I was going to say, I think those three things are, the new zoning enforcement officer, the attorney dealing with Cranberry Bog, and the engineer still working on that too.
I thought there was something from a prior meeting about the attorney not being shown on our budget, and it was on a different budget. I don't remember what that was, but I thought that was something.
Yeah, I can respond to that. This is Angus, if you like. The attorneys for planning and zoning, for inland wetlands, for all of our land use groups are all grouped into the same attorney's line in the selectmen's budget. So I don't have any explanation for what that is. It's been that way since I've been around. So
is there a desire to keep it that way, or?
There's no desire one way or the other. I don't mind the idea, but I would certainly be open to talking about changing it. I think that the Board of Finance likes it where it is, but I don't have any feeling strongly one way or the other.
Okay, and that's kind of a general legal fee amongst all the land use.
Exactly.
Or is there kind of is there an anticipated budget for each of the groups, or it's just?
Yes, the budget is based on past experiences from each of those groups, and it's all bulked in together. And we can, if you are inclined, we can certainly break out attorney's fees for your group, so you know where you are and where you've been. Some years it's more than others. Because of the Prisley case, it's more this year than it has been in the past. That's a federal case, so we've got certain expenses that are a little beyond what the state cases are. I think this is his 5th lawsuit. He's not prevailed. A couple of them have been thrown right out of court.
Okay.
All right. So are we good with the budget report, or should we be holding on this, or should we move on? You guys good with this?
I'm good with it. It clarified and answered my questions.
All right. So we're at the budget. All right. So moving on to audience. Is there anybody in the audience that has anything? So hearing none, we're going to move on. Payment of bills. Do we have any? Nancy, any bills?
Sorry. I don't have anything, no.
Okay. Well, that's always helpful. No bills, just the way it should be. Now we're back at the budget.
I wanted to say something in audience.
Okay.
I just didn't know how to unmute this.
Yep. This is
Jane Samuels.
okay.
One, we were told back when we lost Kathy Jefferson and we took on Rivercog that we were already paying them, so they were cheap. Well, they came on that budget report to $9,000, which is 66% of that budget. I don't think that we were getting a great deal with Rivercog. And two, there is this little building that has gone up. Supposedly they're selling ice cream next to the farm stand out on West Elm. And I don't know, maybe you don't need a permit for that. It's such a small building and maybe it's portable, but aren't they going to get checked out by some health service so that we're not giving them whatever? And one other question is, why are permits coming out of the from Dick Layton that have not been passed by planning and zoning? I found that outrageous.
Okay.
The Dick Layton does not have the right to do things until they've been passed by planning and zoning.
Okay, do we have any proof of that for 1? 2, I will have the zoning enforcement officer look into that because we don't do enforcement here. So that's all we can do is ask John and Mike to take a look at that, if that's a concern. I'm not gonna play into the rest of the hearsay stuff. Anybody else from the audience?
I would like to say something if possible.
Go ahead, John.
In terms of legal advice, I think in P&Z in particular, it's a little different than some of the other commissions and departments, because on a regular basis, you need to look at interpretations of regulations during especially sort of complicated applications. And especially when you have a lawyer sitting across from you out there representing. So I think on a more regular basis, certainly some commissions, and I think you know this, Tony and Alan, I'm sure you do, and Dave, some commissions have an attorney sitting there actually almost every meeting. And certainly any hearing, they, I think, generally believe they should have an attorney sitting there. That also is a special kind of attorney because those regulations and the state statutes and the court cases are very particular. And so just to do your job correctly and efficiently, you need to be able to have that kind of advice at your fingertips. So I would suggest that you might think about having at least some of a legal budget for more regular advisory availability for you.
All right, considered. Thank you.
I would like to make one other comment. Sorry, Tony.
Yep.
But I know that a number of applications, we haven't always done it, but they're supposed to say, and the application conforms to the plan of conservation and development. And I think that one of the things you ought to get CHA to do is to make sure that our regulations are in line with the plan of conservation and development. And also, you probably have to rewrite that plan.
I know we were going to talk about that coming up on the regulations committee, but I will definitely have CHA look into that. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else from the audience? All right, moving on. We were down at the budget. I know Alan wanted to go over some of this a little finer, so I'm going to leave this to you, Alan.
Yeah. Again, we touched on it a little bit in the reporting, but the reason I wanted to bring this up is to make sure that we address our budget for next year. As everybody's aware, our budget has been cut significantly, and it was driven by the I think the contract status with our ZEO in this current fiscal year. But we're facing different circumstances. And those circumstances include the fact that we need to, we've retained a interim ZEO as a consulting service. And I think that this has been in the works for quite a while now, because we had addressed that last year in the initial discussions of a ZEO search. And I think there's a lot of benefits to having a consulting firm that has broader expertise and resources. But not only do we have the interim ZEO services through CME, but we will be retaining I think it's the intent to retain a permanent ZEO. And I think it's become very apparent that we need a very well qualified professional ZEO. I think there's been expression from most that there is a desire to keep comparable hours to what we've had in the past. And there's certainly, you know, when we had a ZEO in place, they worked full time and could work additional hours beyond what was allocated for regular contact hours in the town hall. And I think it's also been reported at the selectmen's meeting that there's expectation that we will see some significant development this coming fiscal year. So it's not, you know, we shouldn't be anticipating a lax year that we will have significant need for the ZEO. So with that in mind, I think we need to present to the Board of Finance a budget that reflects our needs and amends the adopted budget. I did speak at your request, Tony, with Bud Eckenroth, and they're willing to hear PZC, a discussion of what we believe our need is, and invited us to present at their next meeting on Tuesday to see if we can get our budget in line with our needs before the next fiscal year hits. You know, I would propose a motion relative to an adjustment, but let me, I don't know if I can share it, but let me.
The thing that you sent me earlier, or?
Yeah, I kind of drafted
If it's the same one, I can bring it up real quick.
Yeah, if you could, because I don't have a way to share my screen. I think it's best for people to look at. What I did is I looked at our previous fiscal years, basically our current and our prior, which was used to develop our fiscal budget for next year. And there are some line items in our budget that I don't know, I can't say historically, but at least for this current year and the past year, we did not use a significant portion of it. And so in terms of our fiscal responsibility, if we're not going to be using that portion of the budget, I don't think we should commit and allocate that money. But we do need to have in our budget sufficient money for the new ZEO, as well as the interim consulted ZEO services. Are you able to bring that up, Tony? I could.
Yeah, I thought I was. Hold on one second. I'm just going to throw it as a PDF. Save as PDF. Save. All right, let's see here.
Huh.
Of course not. Hold on. Let's try this again.
Well, let me, while you're bringing it up, let me see if I can summarize. I'm looking at it on my screen.
Yeah.
What I did is I took the 18-19 audit, the 19-20 budget, then the adopted 2021, and in that next year's budget, we basically are looking at a decrease of $15,400 in the coming year to really provide the same services that have been expected of us over the, as always, but with potentially an increased burden. All right, there. Thank you, Tony. So you can see in the white cells are basically the cells that reflect the past budgets and the adopted budget as it shows in the Board of Finance budget and in the report that Jonathan sent around. I added the first two yellow columns after the 1920 budget is what's remaining unused in our budget and what's used. I think obviously the salary line is an anomaly because we went a significant portion of this year without the ZEO. But I added a second line on there, which is planning and zoning consulting services for ZEO. And so I looked at projecting, if we're going to say we can potentially hire a new ZEO in 6 months, that we need to budget for a ZEO. And I think we need to budget for the ZEO on a salary commensurate with what we had with Kathy Jefferson, because I think we need somebody that's qualified, certified, professional, and at a rate commensurate with what other towns are paying a ZEO. So for 6 months salary, if I looked at where we're at in 18-19 at really a $33,000 salary for that 6 months, I think we should be budgeting for $16,500 for a half year. There's a potential that we can find somebody for less, but I don't think that there's a guarantee that we can find somebody for less that's of the caliber that I think the town needs. Then on top of that, the second line there, the PZ Consulting Services for ZEO, I projected this for 8 months, thinking that we would have to have an overlap with our interim, with our new ZEO for training, transition, et cetera. We can tinker with these a little bit, but I'm looking at the rate of $2,500 a month, which is basically the proposal that we got from CME. So hoping that we can extend that proposal into the next fiscal year at the same rate. And it also, based on the reports that Jonathan provided, it reflects the very close to what the River Cog was billing on a monthly basis. So that's a basis for that estimate. But it puts our overall ZEO services back to where they were, not this year, but last year, where we had a experienced and certified ZEO. Couple of other adjustments. We kept the part-time clerical salary same place as where it was adopted. I put a line item in there just for discussion for a part-time administrative assistant, because if we are not able to get the hours from our interim ZEO in the office at the town hall, is there the potential to get a paraprofessional in that can provide administrative assistance for the receipt of applications or providing contact, providing information, that contact time. I didn't fill that in. I think it's just something that maybe we discuss going forward in terms of operations. Then the other budgets, equipment, left it basically the same as where it was. Engineering services is one that we've budgeted 5,000, and yet we only use less than 1,000 of that in our budget. Are we over budgeting that? Is that something that we can reduce, or have these past 2 years been anomalies in terms of engineering services? And our expectation is we will expend 5,000. So all I'm doing is going based on the history that's presented in the budget process, and trying to make some adjustments to keep our budget on par, or if possible, based on looking at the economy, what we're facing this year, try to reduce the budget to some extent. Then we've got printing expenses, leave it the same. Engineering review and professional services. Again, this is one where we've budgeted 15,000, and we've only used $430 of that budget. It seems that a reasonable budget for that. And I'm gonna, I'd like clarification from others that might know better what the need might be. But if we budgeted 5,000, we've got $10,000 in that line item that we can reallocate to meet our potential shortfall for retention of CME or for the hiring of a ZEO. And we have training and meeting, kept that the same. I think that recently before it was showing that we hadn't spent it, I think that we're right on par with our expenditure there with what's been budgeted. But I also put in the line item for legal fees because not seeing that line item in our budget, but knowing that we've recently had that need, I'm not sure how we authorize payment of legal fees if it's not within our budget.
Right.
And again, I'm open to clarification. So summary is that I'm really looking to get a direction from the committee to put in front of the Board of Finance the adjustment to our budget, which reflects, the bottom line is a reduction in our budget from the previous year by almost $8,000, $7,923. But it does increase our budget from what was adopted by Board of Finance previously of $7,471. But again, our net proposed budget, as I've laid it out, if it looks reasonable, is $52,256. So I would ask that we, with your input and clarifications on my assumptions, present this to the Board of Finance for an adjustment to our fiscal year 2021 budget.
My only quick comments are I'm always worried about reducing stuff, engineering services, just going into this. It's like those years that it doesn't snow and you have a salt budget and, you're like, all right, well, we could probably reduce this. And then the next year you get hit. So, I mean, and I know Madison's not Deep River, but I know that we're pretty crazy swamped right now with people wanting to get out of the city and come up this way. So if that speaks well for Deep River, maybe we will see an increase and we may need those engineering services.
Okay, what I put in is more than 4 times what we used last year.
Right. But, I'm just throwing out there, trying to be an optimist.
Yep.
Ask a dumb question because I don't know how towns handle their budgets. What happens to the remaining money from our budget from last year?
Who's that speaking?
I believe.
Hey, Chris,
Chris, you can't be speaking.
Yeah, you're.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, I'm gonna strike out. Bye.
What was that?
Apparently, I can't speak. Sorry, Bruce. Fucking ridiculous. Anybody else want to ask that question? That can speak?
I'll.
Chris, I gotta mute you.
I
there.
didn't hear you, but I'll ask the question. The remaining, is my understanding is that anything that remains in an unused budget goes back to the general fund. But I would ask somebody else to clarify. This is, I guess, really a question for the Board of Finance or the Selectmen.
Well, Angus is here. You can jump in. I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, I can speak to a lot of what Alan just said, and I think Tony hit the nail on the head on what he was speaking about engineering fees and engineering services. Yeah, we had a slow year in 18-19. We didn't have very much activity in 19-20. In previous years, we spent every bit of that. That's where that money is from. We have actually reduced it over time, but the problem with reducing it now or any time really is that if we do incur those costs, we need to have those services ready. So we incur those costs, we've got to go through the process of adjusting the budget in the middle of the year. Anything over a certain amount of money, we've got to go back to a town meeting. And there are times that we need that money in a timely manner, in a timely fashion. So while I understand and I appreciate the effort to work on that, I think those numbers are they're not just random numbers that we didn't spend. They were thought out based on past history. As far as legal, that's a good discussion, and I've had that discussion with Board of Finance in the past 4 years about whether we want to just break it out. We do have the ability to. I mean, the legal fee is always there. You guys have never had a problem with having legal advice when you need it and when you want it. And we can provide numbers as you need. It's not, to me, like I said earlier, it's one way or the other. It's not a whole heck of a lot of difference to me. It's the same money in the budget. To answer the thought, Alan, you were right. Any money that's not spent goes back into the general fund. To talk about the ZEO just a little bit, so I can put your mind at ease, I think, for at least for the next 7 weeks anyway. We're finalizing a contract with CME that will cover the remainder of this year, and we're trying to encumber some of the money that we had in this year's salary to cover the first 4 weeks of the next fiscal year. So we will have, for the course of their time here, 7 weeks with CME at that salary. So the salary defined in their proposal to us in our negotiated agreement. That continues to keep the hours of the office the same, an average of 10 hours a week, which includes time at these meetings. As I've said from the beginning, I have no issue with CME. They are professional. They're a good service. They're experienced service. My concern is budget and the lack of an ability to cover the hours that I think the office should have without doubling the cost of the office. The other thing I want to say, we never went more than a couple of weeks without a ZEO. RiverCog graciously stepped in each time we needed them, regardless of how they were perceived. They were very professional, and they did what they were supposed to do. And their services are very much appreciated. To Jane's comment that they were not cheap. No, they weren't cheap, but they were cheaper than CME. They came in at an average of about $85 an hour as opposed to $125 an hour. And we received, I think, 25% of that came out of our dues. So they were the right thing, the right choice at the time. I think that we are in a good spot with CME. They're incredibly professional, and they're a good service. Whether we can afford them or not is the question. And I would propose that we continue to advertise and interview, but I'm not going to do that without consensus from you guys. So, yeah, we like I say, I imagine by Monday afternoon we will have an agreement with CHA or CME, whatever we want to call them, to cover us through July with money that's encumbered from this year's budget. But we do have to also look into the legal ramifications. This is not a hire in the pure sense of the word. This is a contract, and we need to have, in order for the town to enter into a contract, we are obligated to find other prices and to compare this to other services, at the very least, to advertise for that. So that's where I'm at with this.
Angus, could you respond to the general proposal of this budget in terms of, again, bolstering our budget for retention of a ZEO? And if you look at the number, if you look at the numbers for the ZEO and the consultant services, they're basically commensurate. And I agree with you 100% that there Rivercog, their rates, I think, are very good. And I think that CME's rates are appropriate as well, because it is a professional service, and a professional service, whether it's a, engineer, an architect, a planner, an enforcement officer, it's a professional service. And the expectation is that it's not a commodity salary. You need to pay for the appropriate level of professional preparation and certification and registration in some cases. So
I will never argue.
Our problem.
I will not argue with you about that, Alan. I think we agree. I mean, I know my professional fees are considerably higher than theirs. So I'm not going to apply for the job. Yeah.
I'm not vying for the position either, but.
No. So I think that, I want to make sure that everyone understands. I did not encourage us to go with Rivercog because they were cheaper than anybody. I encouraged us to go with Rivercog because they are a professional service, and they have serviced multiple towns in our county and in our council of governments professionally and with high acclaim. Deep River is the only town that they walked away from here with a sour taste in their mouth because of the way that they were represented by this commission. That the cost of Rivercog was only a portion of why I encouraged us to go with them. They are a professional service. As far as what the budget that you put forward, I think that I know that and I believe that the Board of Finance has every intention of raising the salary line to what it was if we are able to find someone that justifies that, and CME does do that, but you've got to convince the Planning and Zoning Commission that it is worth spending the same amount of money for half of the time. And I'm all in with their professionalism. They're going to be great. They are great. But I'm just not sure how we're going to convince the Planning and Zoning Commission that is the right thing to do, given the amount of time.
Board of Finance, you mean?
Board of Finance, yeah, sorry about that. But I also will not, where did I go? Planning and Zoning, Board of Finance, what's that? I don't feel comfortable cutting engineering services in order to make up that money. And I don't feel comfortable negotiating with any applicant that comes in and saying, here's your salary. Here we go. I mean, let's bring them in. Let's see what they want. Let's see what they need. Let's see what their experience is. I think having the money available is important. I think that Board of Finance is on record of saying that if we find someone that requires the amount of money that we paid previously, they'll bring that up. I think that, it's always a negotiation. Ask the fire department. It's always a negotiation with the Board of Finance as to what monies you're going to have available.
But aren't we in a problem if we don't have the money budgeted, then we're not in a position to negotiate with a candidate for ZEO for a salary, which is again commensurate with what's being paid in other towns or what we had previously paid.
Well, I can tell you that $33,000 for 10 hours a week is more than what's being paid by most other towns of our size for the hours for 10 hours a week. But most other towns don't hire professional services to cover their offices. The towns that I do know that CHA is working for are getting 3 hours a week out of them, 4 hours a week. The towns that are our size, and I don't think that's appropriate for our town.
Well, I'm not sure that a discussion of hours is as important as a discussion of the requirements of the service.
You are absolutely right. Yep.
Because
you are 100% correct.
What you pay for is not somebody's hours, but their experience. You have a seasoned professional, and they can resolve the same issue in a fraction of the hours, and potentially with, the avoidance of other litigation or other costs.
And those are important factors, and we will have 7 weeks to be able to judge whether these guys can do that. I can tell you that they've done a fantastic job cleaning up what was left for them by Julie.
And again, and then I don't kind of link back to the line item that I left blank on here, which is a part-time administrative assistant.
Yep.
That's just for discussion. Is it possible that we could get somebody in the office who could facilitate either the CEO or the consulted services through CME that would streamline application process, dissemination of information, and day-to-day stuff, which then would give us more contact hours in town and potentially be beneficial to the budget. So again, I'm not offering that I'm offering it as something to be discussed, that perhaps we begin to look at how do we streamline and modify our services, especially in context to the ability to do a lot of this work remotely, as we're learning how to do it during this COVID situation, that we might be able to be a lot more expeditious and retain somebody that gives additional contact hours at a good economy for the town.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I like where this is going. I was just going to throw back at the reduction. I'm still hesitant about that. I mean, we're also, don't forget, I mean, we do planning also, and we have the plan of conservation development we're going to look at again.
Right. Well, in regard to that, Tony, I think that that's definitely a task that we have experience with RiverCog, and I think that they're ideally suited.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think under the dues that we pay the RiverCog, that's usually included some assistance with the plan, the plan of conservation and development, and we would continue to retain them in that capacity. And again, not burden CME with that. We certainly get their participation, but find a economical way to meet that need, because I think it's been expressed that that's something that needs to happen in a relative near term, that we're due for a comprehensive review. And I think there's been recent developments that make it even more important.
Yeah, I mean, that's just besides the COG, again, a lot of that stuff is still gonna have to be checked, for engineering too. That's why I'm saying don't hold the line for engineering.
Right. So I guess as I mentioned earlier, we've been invited by the Board of Finance to kind of present a revision to our budget and explanation of it. But I think obviously we need to have the selectmen on board with this. But at the same time, we need to put something in place, because presently we do obviously we encumber our surplus from this year's budget, the remainder of that to offset some of the deficit. But I think we really want to put together a budget, something that we're going to work to, that makes sense and is not something that's reactionary. So I entertain some recommendations as how we adjust this to present to them. I understand your recommendation to, again, put the engineering services back in line with what they've been in, which means the budget that we would be presenting them shows an increase from last year, in face of really a desire to kind of to lower budgets. But
I know, I mean, we cut them both. That's my only, maybe a cut to one, or I don't know. That's just my gut. Anybody else?
Well, I mean, I think we do have to make a decision, because we've got to get to the Board of Finance. You need that budget in place. I don't like not having things, budgets not in place. And to have to go back to it later, we don't know what the year's bringing. There has to be something to prop this up. I mean, it's a starting spot. I understand about the engineering, but I think that we do have to move forward with something rather quickly, Because once the fiscal year's over, we need to basically have these things allocated so that we can do what we have to do for a ZEO, which is one of the important factors at this moment.
Well, I mean, Alan's tackled this pretty well, so.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only talking $5,000 from engineering. There's nothing saying we can't monkey with the reallocate some money here and there. If this is what gets adopted.
What's the difference between oh dear. Hello?
Yep, you're there.
Engineering services and the line below. Shoot.
Engineering review?
Yeah.
Engineering services is engineering that you request for advice, counsel, that
Well,
kind
like
of
when
thing.
Nathan Jacobson does their review of stuff, for example.
Nate Jacobson is the review engineer that you use, or the engineer that you use exclusively.
Yeah.
Both for engineering services and engineering review. What's happening right now with the Cranberry Bog subdivision, the review of that to bring to you, so in order for you to release the bond, falls under engineering review professional services. When you contact them to ask about a regulation change or other kinds of things that are not a direct result of of a specific application, but say you want to make a change to your regulations, that would fall under engineering services.
Anybody else have any comments on this?
Well, does it make sense to try to, if necessary, based on the comments, amend this budget and present it to the Board of Finance? And Angus, I'm still interested to understand your recommendations. I know that there's a mechanism to pay for some of the consulting services out of this past year's budget, but would you be in support in general of this overall budget with some modification?
I think he muted himself and sounded like there was a call coming in, so he might be from an
Oh,
other.
sorry about that. I was talking away and didn't realize I had muted myself. Alan, I haven't looked at this, and frankly, my computer's only showing about half of it, so I can't say I'm going to be behind it or not. Conceptually, I think it's a well thought out, and I think we should address it. I think you need to remember that we already do have an adopted budget, and this is a good solution to come to the Board of Finance with. To suggest to them that you all as a group have put some thought into how you want to address the ZEO situation. I'm not 100% certain that simply going to them. I mean, I can't tell you if I was sitting on your commission right now talking about this, what I would do, I would suggest you go and talk to them about increasing the salary line. Let's leave the rest of it there. Just focus on the salary. That's the concern right now. You're showing solutions as to how you can address it. They're not going to be concerned, and the Board of Selectmen are not going to be concerned about whether we hire a part-time assistant or not. For the functional parts of it, what we need to be able to say is how we can afford to do it. And I think I like the administrative assistant idea, and it might be a way that we can figure out how to find some money for that if we can't get CME to reduce their fees or somehow come to a better idea of how we can get them to be in the office and the office can be open.
And again, I appreciate that, Angus.
And I want to just finish. I think I do agree with you that they have the potential to be able to do well. I can tell you right now, they can do all the work that Julie did over 6 months in a week and a half. But I don't think that that's the case with the work that Kathy did. She was working hard all the time for you guys, oftentimes beyond the 10 hours. So I think we have a road that we need to go down. I'd like very much to do it cooperatively, to come to who we can get in that seat. Right now, we're okay for the next 6-7 weeks. And I think that gives us a little bit of breathing room and a time to think this through a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Angus agreed to basically put that back if you guys are good with that, and just ask for an increase in the salary. I mean, that's kind of what I was shooting at for from the get-go. I mean, is everybody else?
I'm fine. If you feel like you can get it, I'd like to get that number up before the fiscal year starts so that we know the money's there.
And since Alan's done all this work, it sounds like he wants to be the point man for this, so.
I didn't hear me say that.
It sounded like you volunteered is what it sounds like.
It sounded like you're volunteering me.
Yeah, well, that's how I got here.
The power of the chairman. I'd be happy. I'd be happy to revise this per your comments and present it. And if I'm hearing correctly, it's only the salary line that we'll be adjusting and not including a line for consulting services. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Tony?
No, it sounded like just keeping the, don't reduce engineering services or
Gotcha.
Any one of them, and just put the salary where we need it.
Okay, so we'll keep everything else as adopted, and it certainly will affect the our proposed. Just it probably won't look as desirable because we won't see a reduction if we eliminate those reductions. But I think I understand that now. I think I agree with you. We don't want to reduce a budget line that we think that we're going to anticipate. And again, you have said it as well as Angus has said it, that this year we're probably anticipating some additional activity because of the more the residential market, I suspect. But how do you want to proceed? Do we want to make a motion to present this with the amendment that we restore all the other line items to where they were?
Look at you, you're volunteering to go and making the motion? Boy, I like where this is going.
Well, I'm not hearing anybody else make the motion for me, and I did have it written out. If you see up above that spreadsheet, I tried to.
Yeah. Right, so since Alan's made the motion for himself, does anybody want to second that?
I'll second the motion.
All right. Anybody against?
Let's have a little discussion on
There you
that.
go.
So,
I'm sorry.
so basically, we are suggesting to the Board of Finance that the Planning and Zoning Commission wants to keep the same budget we have had this previous fiscal year, the current fiscal year, but try to bump up the income for the ZEO. Is that what the motion is?
That's basically what the motion is. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Any other discussion?
Doesn't it take us closer back to what the original budget was though, from like last year?
Yes, it does, and that's fine. The only reason, and this was explained numerous times, the only reason that the budget was reduced the way it was because we had a zoning enforcement officer in place that accommodated her salary. That was when the budget was being prepared. At the last minute, when she left the position, it was too late for the Board of Finance, in their minds, to adjust their budget. They wanted to see some solution offered to them in order to do that. they did say at the time that they were amenable to adjusting, to revising the budget upward if the situation came that we needed to. And it's up to us to explain to them that that situation has come. It's also up to us to explain to them that why the cost is justified. I can tell you this: I've argued against the. I argued quite vehemently for a number of things in this year's budget that did not get through.
Yep.
But this they've on record said if we can justify the cost, and that the money will be there, and the money is there in the budget. It's not a matter of whether we do it this week or whether we do it next month.
Right. There
is money in. We have monies to put that back. We just need to do it. And it may require a town meeting, but I don't think you would have any trouble with that.
So, with that said, perhaps we revise this motion that we're not requesting this budget, but we put this forward for discussion with the Board of Finance so that we can work with them to resolve the budget for next year. Again, I mean, the way the motion is written here is to actually make the request for this budget. But would it be a matter of presenting our concerns and then have a working discussion with Board of Finance and the selectmen to resolve the budget with this intent? Should we keep the motion to request this budget, or should we amend the resolution to present this to them for discussion?
I like the idea, Alan, in the sense because it gives you an opportunity to suggest some of these other thoughts that you've presented tonight, and that you and Tony may have spoken about. But your plan here, there are some real interesting ideas here, and it would be nice to get that out in front of both selectmen and the finance group. And there's nothing that says that if you go to them and are able to present a good enough to strong enough argument, that they won't raise that salary line next week.
Right.
If we can present a strong enough argument, they might make the motion and do it.
So is that you revised your original motion?
Yeah, I would revise it is that we present the concept of this budget to the Board of Finance in lieu of requesting them to adopt this budget, is that we have the discussion with them along with and again, I'm not going to present myself as being an expert in town budgeting. What I'm looking at is trying to, and this is not what I want to be doing. I want to be addressing food trucks and planning issues personally. But I would also like to make sure that we have our operating budget in place, so we don't have to worry about this through the course of the rest of the year. And we've got a responsibility to address the business of the commission. But let's engage in discussion with all the parties that have the expertise and the additional perspective. I mean, including operations side, because maybe there's a seed of opportunity with an administrative assistant or other options. So let's put them on the table, but demonstrate our intent to keep at least move in a direction of allocating the appropriate resources to get everything that we need to get it done, regardless of how that fleshes out in terms of consultant services, salaries, assistance, etc.
All right.
So, Alan, Tony, before, so in other words, what you're going to present, though, won't be the numbers that are on here, because this is suggesting that proposal with the reduced engineering review. So the numbers that you're going to go to the finance board with are not the numbers that are currently on this. projection of yours?
It will be the numbers on here with the exception of the reduction in engineering services and a reduction in the engineering group / professional services. So everything apart from the first two lines will be the same as what has been adopted. So we either put all of our consulting services, up into the salary line, or we keep it split as as what we anticipate is that there might be a longer period to land a ZEO. The reality is that these two numbers are virtually the same. 6 months of service is going to cost in the budget that I proposed the same as a fully qualified ZEO or a engineering, a ZEO consulting firm with expertise. The hours may vary, and we still have to face some form of an overlap. When we get a ZEO, we'll have training. Perhaps we can reduce that if the training is done by Rivercog, but you would almost think you're going to have the transition with the active ZEO. So that's a long answer. The short answer is everything would be same as adopted, with the exception, as I stand right now, of the first two lines.
You good with that, Bruce?
Okay.
All right, Benny, you re-seconding this?
Sure, I'll second.
All right. Any more discussion? All right. Anybody against this? Anybody abstaining? Everybody in favor?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
The only comment I'd like to make, and then I don't think there's anything left for me to say at this meeting, but is that I agree very much that the planning and zoning is what this group should be focusing on. But just by increasing the salary does not solve the immediate problem that we need to find someone and a permanent, and that we can get in that seat for many years, as opposed to for 6 months at a time. So we still will need to talk about advertising, interviewing, and filling that seat.
Well, I thought we were still going to put ads out for.
I'm hoping to do that, but based on previous experience, I'm reluctant to do anything without having some consent from this group.
We did last month.
Yeah, the last month was this.
Yeah.
Put up the same.
Okay, I didn't see that. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
What the motion says, Angus, was to advertise the ZEO position in the same manner that was done for the last round of the ZEO search.
That's fine.
That was unanimous.
We're halfway there. We've already been doing that on the Casio search. So. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
All right. So that was budget. We're on to commissioner training. I have nothing unless you guys have done some.
I think I saw an email come through from Deep River that there's an opportunity for training for commissioners. I don't have it in front of me, but it did come through. Did anybody else see that?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw that. It was for people on all the land use boards, I believe.
Huh. I did not see that. Can
Tony,
Yep.
Tony, now that Chris is on, and I know we're at the very end, I have got to go feed my people. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was on Zooms leading up to this, so can I relinquish my spot to Chris?
I believe so.
I'm sorry, you guys.
No,
All
no.
right. See everyone
Christy.
later.
Take care.
All right. So Christy is unseated and Chris DeRosa is being seated.
Is he still on?
I think so. I was just looking for his name.
I actually think he left.
He disconnected.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess he's not seated. So moving on, commissioner training. If someone could forward that, I clearly didn't see that email or didn't get it. Anybody? Is it a Zoom thing? Is it a live thing? Anybody want to elaborate a little bit?
Oh, yeah, it's like a webinar or something. Zoom, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you forward that, that'd be great. I mean, it always helps to have a little more training.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can dig it up, Tony, and forward it to you, and you can redistribute it.
Thank you.
If you feel appropriate.
All right. Moving on, Regulations Committee. I know Alan wanted to discuss some of this too.
Jesus.
I know, you just wanted to talk tonight, I guess.
Well, the only comment I made, I mean, the Regulations Committee, when Julie came on, she was going to assume a lot of the responsibilities on the Regulation Committee to look at our bylaws and also our regulations. And kind of as a result, the Regulations Committee kind of fell by the wayside. I think it might be important that we reestablish the Regulations Committee to continue that work. I don't have any motion to offer, just bring that up for discussion and maybe solicit folks on the commission who might want to participate. Unfortunately, Christy left. I think that she might have been a good candidate for the Regulations Committee as well, to give her a stronger role within the commission. So I offer that up for discussion, and I just wanted to point out the fact that the Regulations Committee right now is dormant.
Right. They're I was going to say, I mean, we're going to have to do some of that anyway if we're moving forward with the food trucks. So maybe we've always had it on the agenda. I mean, we'll just keep bumping it forward. But I agree, there's stuff that in the regs that I've harped on everybody to change. So I think it's something we should definitely, if you think Christy would be interested, maybe we'll do that.
I only volunteered her because she wasn't, she couldn't say no. But
right, well, Chris, I was going to say, Chris isn't
David,
here either. Maybe he wants to do it.
If I recall, David, that that there was some discussion that you might even chair that Regulations Committee before it went dormant. So, but you also have different responsibilities now. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it had been Jane Samuels and I, and then you were in some of those meetings on the bylaws. Maybe we need to start revisiting that.
Right. I would like to make another recommendation in regard to that. I had some discussions with Frank Santoro, who's actually a retired lawyer who has considerable experience with land use and zoning, and previously had expressed some interest in participating in the Regulations Committee. Now the Regulations Committee, although I think it's the membership, I should have brushed up on this. I don't know if I think the membership is comprised of commissioners, but that there is a public component of it, and we might look at whether that's viable to enlist, a member of the public for regular participation in the committee, because I think a legal perspective would be very, very beneficial on the Regulations Committee in discussion of amending our regulations, because that way we might avoid stepping in things that we shouldn't be stepping in.
Well, I was a couple of things I wanted to bring up was, we have new CEOs. They should definitely be involved in this. The members of the public have always been kind of a touchy subject. I always like their input, but I don't know if he can be a direct member of a committee of ours.
I don't think so.
Right, there's nothing against him showing up and, talking to us. I mean, we have people show up all the time to planning and zoning to give their input. So it's always helpful. I mean, we don't know everything. So, but I mean, I agree. This needs to come forward, but I think those guys should be involved now that they're here, John and Mike.
Yeah, they could certainly help with this, I think.
Yeah.
or advise.
Can I make the suggestion that obviously we're not going to reestablish it or identify members this week, but
Right.
for on the agenda for the next meeting that we, reestablish the regulations committee and identify participants for that committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will have it on there. Anything else? Anybody? Regulations committee. All right. Nope. Moving on. Old business. I have nothing. Anybody else?
No.
All right. One more. We got new business. Anybody?
Actually, something, Tony, under new business.
Shoot.
I sort of been looking around because there's been some demolition of structures over the past couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of struck me as odd. And I did go in and look at some of the stuff that was in the land use folders. One of the things that's happening here is we do sort of have to address this. Section 8.1.3, it clearly states that that there cannot be a building structure constructed, enlarged, extended, moved, altered, yada, 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 till there's a permit issue. And then it goes on to say that if a structure or building is 50 years or older to be demolished, no demolition should occur for 90 days after the application, and demolition must be legally noticed. At the conclusion of the 90-day period, the demolition permit may be issued. A waiver of 90-day period may be issued by the zoning commission if circumstances are demonstrated to the commission waive such a or warrant such a waiver. It's just one of these things, and I know this through my own experiences. People get a little crazy when they see buildings being knocked down. A lot of questions come up. And it is in our regulations that we are supposed to be basically looking over this, and that these things should be posted. And I think we do need to tighten up on that. There's been court cases over these things of buildings being demolished. One of the things that we will sort of get in trouble about, if there's not zoning sign off, you are not supposed to be issuing building permits for those things. It puts us in a gray area that we do need to start making sure that the proper procedures are followed. Demolition of structures.
Well, that gets to the building official's responsibility, though. If he doesn't have a P&Z sign off, that's his responsibility, right? To
Well, demolition is.
Demolition is there has to be a P&Z sign off before the permit is issued.
Right.
So you're supposed to be posting that building for 90 days, which typically the way you post it is a big sign out front.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I guess, is the building official should not be approving a permit if he doesn't have anything from the ZEO or the P&Z commission.
You're correct, Dave. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Yes, you are correct.
All right. So, I mean, I guess I will call John and Mike and, make them aware of your concerns. Ask them to look into some of this. It is, I mean, like you said, it's in the regulation. I'll make sure they're aware of it. They're the new guys, so.
Yeah, I just think it would cause, there's a lot of stuff, your phone starts ringing when buildings get knocked down. It's nothing against the applicants, but if you look in the folder and you can't find the clear trail of things, it does leave us open to some issue.
No, absolutely.
Which actually, while looking through the folders, Tony, if you wouldn't mind asking them as well, I was looking in the folder of Deep River Farms.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff missing out of that folder that would be helpful if they could check in. I mean, I was looking for demolition stuff. I happened to review some of the other stuff in the folder. There's no zoning approvals in there for work. There's an awful lot of stuff that really should be cleaned up and make sure it's in those folders.
I will throw that at them.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other new business? All right. We're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Is it 7:30 already?
Yeah, yeah.
I-
Nobody
I'd
wants
like
to make the motions. You
I'd
guys
like to
wanna
make
stay
a motion to adjourn the meeting.
for a second.
I second.
All right. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a good evening. I'm gonna
Okay,
figure out how to
thanks.
stop my shares and
Thanks,
everything.
thanks, Tony. Bye, guys.
No problem, guys. Have a good night, everybody.
Back, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Please stop recording.